Hello, welcome back. Today we're going to continue our discussion around defining religion and some of the issues around defining religion. So last class, the first lecture on defining religion, we discussed that it's necessary for scholars of religion to create a definition around what is religion in order to have a field of discipline, in order to have an object to study. In order to have an object of study, there needs to be something or some things or some movements or some ideals, some behaviors that scholars can call religious or religion, and then maybe some that do not fall within that circle. And that's necessary because if there's not something that could be defined as religion, then there's no object, definite object of study for scholars of religion. So scholars of religion have recognized that they have been clearly invested in creating this category, creating this thing we call religion. And in doing so, by defining what is religion, they're also by definition implying what is not. And there's an arbitrariness to this. And I want to continue today the conversation. I want to illustrate the arbitrariness by thinking about baseball and thinking about the sport of baseball as possibly being a religion, or being having elements of what we call religious. So let me share my screen with you here. Go here real quick. I'm going to share this screen here. All right. And so here is Yankee Stadium, one of the basically one of the sacred sites that people make pilgrimages to, amongst other baseball stadiums throughout the United States, that people make pilgrimages to on a regular basis. It's like a sacred site. In some ways, it mimics the ideal of here Mecca, where you have the Kaaba or the cube in the middle of the Holy Mosque. And once a year, Muslims make a pilgrimage, a Hajj. It's one of the 5 pillars in the Islamic tradition to Mecca. In some ways, and not in some ways, this definitely is a sacred site within the Islamic tradition. How is that different than these baseball stadiums? Within baseball stadiums, outside of baseball stadiums, you often have statues of some of the great heroes of the given baseball team. So here you have a statue of Ernie Banks. He's a Hall of Fame baseball player of the Chicago Cubs. And this statue lays outside Wrigley Field, the home of the Chicago Cubs, and it memorializes Ernie Banks. He will be remembered within the halls of the halls of memory of the Chicago Cub tradition forever. Right, he's forever to be remembered. Thus, there's a statue of him outside of this sacred site, Wrigley Field, the baseball stadium of the Chicago Cubs. Here you have St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, Italy. And this too, this is a sacred site within the Roman Catholic tradition. You can see up here on top of St. Peter's Basilica, in the front part here, there's statues. There's statues of saints. Here's a close-up. This is a statue of Saint Peter holding the keys, in order to remember, as it says in the Gospels, that Jesus said to Peter, "Here are the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bound on earth will be bound in heaven." And so the statue outside of St. Peter's Basilica, it commemorates a hero, a saint of the Catholic tradition. How is that different than there being a statue of Ernie Banks outside the sacred site being the Wrigley Field, the baseball stadium of Chicago Cubs? And baseball, those who are deemed most exceptional are memorialized within the Hall of Fame. Those who are deemed of having contributed much in terms of their talent to this baseball tradition, they're memorialized for eternal memory within the Baseball Hall of Fame. Likewise, within religious traditions, as we'll discuss as we move forward throughout this semester, you have saints who are memorialized and remembered such as these four saints here memorialized in stained glass. And they're deemed to be, those who have contributed much to the given religious tradition which they belong to. Within sports, within sports and religion, you have this focus on the body and in maintaining the purity of the body. So here, for example, you have Barry Bonds. He has the record for most home runs hit throughout one's career. I believe it's 762 home runs. Yet he will never be accepted into the Hall of Fame, and be placed amongst all the other heroes, the baseball greats of this tradition. Why? Because he used anabolic steroids, and because he did that impure thing to his body, he has been exiled. He has been condemned, and he will never be permitted to enter and become a part of the sacred memory of the Baseball Hall of Fame. It's because he broke purity laws. Likewise, Roger Clemens, one of the best pitchers of his generation, has been found guilty of taking anabolic steroids. He too broke purity laws, and him too, even though he has some of the best statistics ever recorded for a pitcher, will not be allowed to enter the sacred memory of the Hall of Fame. Again, he transgressed a boundary of purity in relationship to his body. You see the same thing, the same kind of obsession and fixation with maintaining the purity of the body. You see this in the baseball tradition. You see in religious tradition. Here, you have a young boy washing his feet. Is this a practice of purity, cleansing one's body before entering into salat, or prayer, within the Islamic tradition. This practice is called wudu, and it's a purity practice that's focused around maintaining the purity of the body. So whether it be baseball, whether it be religion, there's this kind of focus on the body and related to the concept of purity. You have high holidays within the baseball tradition. The World Series is the culmination of the baseball season. It's like the high point of the baseball season, where the two best teams from each league compete in the championship called the World Series. It's a high holiday in the baseball season. Likewise, across religious traditions, we'll talk about some of these holidays. You have high holidays, for example, the holiday of Holi within the Hindu tradition. We'll talk about that holiday as we progress forward. You have food within religious traditions, which are of utmost important. Types of food you could eat at particular times of the year, often around holidays, and foods you might be forbidden to eat. Within the baseball tradition, often there's pretzels, there's Cracker Jacks, there's hot dogs, and there's beer. And these are kind of the foods which are connected and are part of the baseball tradition that focus on food. Across religious traditions, there's emphasis on food and the importance of food. Here, you have within the Catholic tradition the sacrament known as the Eucharist, which is based on Jesus saying to his disciples before his crucifixion, "Take this bread broken for you, for his my body broken for you." And so again, the importance of food in the baseball tradition, in some ways, the hot dog, in some ways, the Cracker Jacks, in some ways, the beer are sacraments. They're embedded within the baseball tradition. Within the baseball tradition, you have hymn. You have a hymn that's sung towards in the middle of the seventh inning of each ball game throughout the United States, and it's called "Take Me Out to the Ball Game, Take Me Out to the Crowd." It's a hymn, and everyone stands up together and sings it together. You have music, which is central to the baseball game, and you have these collective movements, such as here at Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. They're doing the wave together, and it reminds me of this notion of Emily Durkheim's notion of collective effervescence, which he says is a marker of religion. He says when people get together and do the same motions and have the same towards the same focus of joy and kind of that brings them together. That's collective effervescence, and you see it at baseball stadiums. Everyone doing the same motion in unison, focused on the same thing. It's also something you see in religious traditions. So here, this is an image from a Christian worship service. People doing something in some ways doesn't look much different than what you see at Dodger Baseball Stadium when they're doing the wave. So why is one a religion and one's not? Here it comes from an image from a university, Oklahoma State University, where everyone's doing the O together. It looks very similar to what you see in terms of Christian worship. Why is one deemed a religion and one's not? Who gets to decide that? Here we have a group of Orthodox Jews, which we'll talk about when we get to the Jewish tradition. So is baseball religion? Well, it depends who you ask. Baseball has sacred sites, pilgrimage sites, just like religions do. It has high holidays, like the World Series, just like religions have high holidays. It enshrines in the sacred memory of the saints, those who've contributed much to the tradition, just like religious traditions do. It has policies to maintain the purity of the body. Baseball has relics. It has rules and language that only the initiated understand. It has traditions and songs which are similar to hymns. Baseball has sacred food. It has sacred clothing. Baseball has collective effervescence. Emily Durkheim's term to describe a sociological phenomena where people communicate the same thought and participate in the same action to create a unifying feeling, which serves as the basis for the religious in religion. Religious and what is religious in religion. And so here in this particular lecture, I wanted to suggest by reflecting upon baseball, that there's things outside of what we formally call religions or religious that very much look like religions or look religious, such as baseball. However, we define some things as religion and some things as not because we're listening to the voices of the authorities, the scholars of religion, who get to decide what is religion and what is not. So I'm going to leave it there for now. We'll return. I'll get back to you next class. Thank you so much, and take care.